everyone to week 2. We're going to be doing the techniques and styling for our basic news stories. So here we are going to be looking at how to write your hard news story and your soft news story. So we're going to go through this video for a change with the slides. So let's just switch over and we can take a look at what's in store for this week. Now, quick recap to the next slide. Now, if you remember last week, we talked about news values, what makes news, the role of media as the fourth estate. These are just a quick look at some of the thinkers behind what is important of press freedom, freedom of speech, the allowance to give to a certain set of organizations, group of individuals, or society to self-govern. So the media exercises that role as the fourth estate. There are three Johns that you can refer to that defended this idea of freedom of expression: John Milton, John Locke, and John Stuart Mill. Again, we won't go into depth into these philosophers or authors, but you're free to have a little read on your own with the additional resources provided in the week ahead. So very quick recap, John Milton around the 17th century reiterated about the importance of freedom of speech and was totally against censorship, to be able to promote positive ideas, right ideas from wrong ideas, and to give people that liberty to question and have those conversations. John Locke continued with these ideas, emphasizing that truth must be tried and examined, and that is what philosophy that should drive a particular society to thrive and to continue to progress and self-govern and develop. John Stuart Mill, he looked at how the press and conversations within the press was important to defend itself against corrupt practices, authoritarian governments, and to give people the power, the ability to once again to be informed and make decisions for themselves so that they can progress in as a society on their own. So these are some of the ideas that are floating around very early on, and it's been carried through the centuries, particularly in America, and then spread through different emerging democracies. So something to reflect upon as you are investigating your news stories ideas. The US passed the Bill of Rights in 1791, and there is that strong motivation of not inhibiting the desire for truth, inhibiting the motivation to find out accurate facts, and the desire to not inhibit people the right to peacefully assemble, to write to their governments, to redress grievances. So this is one of the key roles of media as the fourth estate. Some very brief examples. Again, these have been out in the press. The Watergate scandal in the 70s, where it moved to force Nixon to resign based on some discrepancies, and also the Panama Papers, I think led by a group of international investigative journalists, to uncover a series of embezzlement, a series of money laundering practices, and where powerful and influential or even the elite have found ways to avoid taxes and such. This is just one of many, many cases, and I think the document is really long. So there are excerpts of it online. Feel free to look. And I think closer to home for us in Malaysia, if you had been following the former Prime Minister Najib Razak's involvement or alleged involvement in the whole 1MDB saga, and including his family, his son, and his wife. So why these issues come up into public conversation is because of the press. So we have to, in my opinion, as a former journalist, we have to protect that role to allow people the power to question authority and abuses in government or abuses of power. So your role then as a journalist is to seek the truth. Now, where do we begin to seek this truth? We research, we read widely, as I've mentioned in the week past and in the weeks ahead. And after you've gathered and researched your story, you write it out, you put it in a format that is accessible to your audiences. The aim of this research is to find out facts, to find out the truth, or at least an objective view of a particular situation. You are looking for answers objectively. There's no biasness. You ask the questions. These questions we touched upon last week: the who, the what, the where, when, why, and how. So one way to remember is the 5 wives and 1 husband rule. In any investigation that you are pursuing, it can also be non-journalistic work. These questions will set you upon helping you to dissect a particular topic. If you're working on an essay, you're embarking on a project, it really is the basis of all investigations. So going straight into the technical aspects of writing hard news and soft news. Now, for hard news stories or hard news reports, the go-to model is to look at the inverted pyramid model. There was an introductory video with a cartoon and an animation of how to do that. We will go into this a little bit deeper here. It's a formula that is effective, economical, it goes straight to the point, it reports facts, there is very little flair. So the language is very succinct, to the point, and direct. So this is a model we want to be using for your hard news story assessment, which should be assessment 4 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so it's compulsory to use the inverted pyramid model. What is it? Here we're looking at the pyramid. The top line, or at least the top part of the pyramid, is actually the key points of your introduction. What is the most important thing that you want to explain to your readers or your audience that you are telling this story to? Now, for soft story news, which is your second assessment, you can use this model as well. But if you decide not to, that is totally fine. But it is compulsory for your hard news story. Just keep that in mind. So coming back to the pyramid, we have that important part on the intro. Second or third line, you start explaining the what's, the where's, the when, who's, why, and how. Going on to the 4th or 5th paragraph, you can look for the strongest quote from your interviewees and provide 1 line of background to the topic or the issue that you're writing about. At the bottom is the least newsworthy details. This is designed this way because back in the day when we had newspapers, which were more in circulation, it will be physically cut, you know, and printed onto and designed onto molds and plates and steel plates so that it can literally print it out on newsprint. Now, for a sub-editor who's trying to save time and on a tight deadline, they have no time to read the dozens of stories that come in every day. So they will cut the bottom of the article. So let's say this is your article. At the bottom of it would be the least important part of the story. They make a physical cut. Now we've moved from plates. If you have a chance, when I was in the Star, they did a lot of what they do is they photograph. They printed it on film, and that itself goes to print. And then they moved on to lasering stories on very thin plates to be printed. So that is something else for another topic. But why we follow this model? You read quickest from the top. If you're reading linearly, you read the top sentence, most important, you got your information, you don't have to read the story to its completion. So this is the inverted pyramid style, compulsory for hard news story. Now we're still sticking with the inverted pyramid style. Looking at your introduction paragraph, it's one sentence, please. No more than 20 to 25 words, not more than 30 words. Of course, if you write any more, it becomes long, rambly, and you lose the ability to capture the attention of your reader. The best intros are catchy and reflect the mood of the story, focusing on the strongest news value. We will go through this in tutorial, but this is just some of the principles that guides your introductory paragraph. Now, when writing your hard news story, we don't expect you to have an opinion. It's all reporting what you have investigated, what someone else has told you about the issue. So no exaggeration, please, no flowery words. Okay, active voice is stressed here in all your news writing for both stories. Passive voice is avoided because it can be long and rambly, and it will maybe sort of drag the tone of the story down. So always use active voice in all your news story assignments. Print news stories, in this case, you're writing prints. You could write for a newspaper in the future that will go online. You're still writing a story. They are always in past tense. Why? You're using reported speech. He said, she said, they said, Mr. Smith said. So because you are reporting, it happened in the past tense. Source attribution. Always refer back to a source. This is the cardinal rule. You are not writing fiction. You are reporting what someone else has told you during an interview. You are reporting what an official document is showing you. You are reporting facts. So always attribute your source. No opinions, no comments. Leave that for your blogs or your Insta stories or your personal journals and reflections. Hard news stories, soft news stories, we do not want your opinion. Now, coming back to writing a hard news story, short, sharp sentences and paragraphs, direct quotes, add color to the story. Right? We followed that inverted pyramid comment. So it's actually a very it's a very interesting model to use, but it can also be quite blocking in the sense that if you're used to writing long features, long prose, long essays, it really challenges you to write succinctly. So this is a course that will give you that opportunity to do so. Okay, let's move on to the next quick topic. Soft news stories applicable to your, should be your second assessment, which is due not soon, quite soon, right? In the weeks ahead. Looking at a soft news story offers, like the name on the package, it is less rigid. It can have a little bit of flowery, creative language in it. But what is important, it needs to entertain a reader or the viewer, your consumer who is reading or consuming your soft news stories need to be engaged in what you are writing. This Carl Session step has shared some virtues of a soft news story, which is, it could be a piece of compelling, it needs to have like a compelling material to define it, a special idea, and of course it needs to be engaging. So those of you writers within this course who enjoy a little bit more flair in writing, your soft news stories will give you that opportunity to do so. There are various types of soft news stories, some general features that could be talking about how people are coping during a time of COVID. It could be quite tragic. It could be involve sharing of compassion, acts of kindness that you write about, or it could be specialist features. Perhaps there's a car enthusiast that writes a story, a news story that is soft in nature. So he's talking about a particular car, he's reviewing the latest, this model, that model. A technology writer, a gaming reviewer, someone who's really into games, but he needs to give you the idea what the game is like. They can write that sort of story. So they're specialist health writers, as it says. So lots of different soft news stories that you can look upon to do. So if there's an interest that drives you, if you like music, you like fashion, you love food, you love interaction, you love mobile games, you love sports. In the last semester, we had lots of interesting stories about technology, ice hockey. We had personality features about compassionate individuals that make the story newsworthy to become a soft news story. That's what I mean too by personality features. So if you've encountered somebody who's outstanding, who's an outstanding student, citizen, who's done something really unusual, that is makes it newsworthy, sure, pitch it, and then we can look at it as a soft news story idea. Now, leading soft news stories gives you a little bit of flexibility, as the title says. So you don't have to be so concerned about the inverted pyramid model if you're not looking at it. As long as you have very engaging leads, if you're looking at these two examples and how the writer has started a very simple story about the police in managing theft in Subang Jaya. This is just an example. You can see how the news lead starts it, and you can read how the soft news, or in some people do call it features, how it starts to be a little bit more rhythmic in its writing, a little bit more descriptive. So consider that when you're doing your soft news story, particularly when it's a topic that is intriguing, say, what is this, or a novel, or or tugs at your heartstrings. You can always be descriptive in nature when you're starting your soft news story. Now, what's important is you have to give the story flow. Like in all essays that you have been writing or you are learning to write in your semester, one sentence needs to lead on to the other so that when the person reads the story, he or she are able to follow the story. So in this example, it talks about how the second paragraph builds upon information from the first paragraph. So I'm going to allow you to read that on your own. What is important here is it needs to make sense. So this comes with practice. So if you're used to writing prose, if you're used to writing your own pieces, you're a writer, you've done a book yourself, or blog posts, or post articles up online, or actually wrote books or whatever, this should come quite naturally. But consider that you need to make sense in how you tell the story. Okay. For those who are looking for different sort of ways to flow from one sentence to another, this is something you can also apply to your essays, if it warrants it. You can use different elements to transition from one sentence to another. For instance, you're using the element of time. You can use all these different examples here, right? The next morning, last week, today, meanwhile, later. These are all acceptable in a soft news story. So it really depends on how you're using it. It's not compulsory, but it's an option for you to consider to expand your vocabulary. Same thing with other transitions. You can talk about, emphasis on particular places, place and position, or cause and effect. Maybe you want to back up when you're writing your third sentence, you want to back up your second sentence with evidence. You can also use those transitions given there. And in summary, you can always talk about how you conclude the story. Okay, so now we're on specifically only for your soft news story. Ending it, you can actually do like a little summary. So in this story where it was about policing in Subang Jaya and fighting armed robberies or burglaries, or deterring burglaries, the writer had done sort of a summary to what he or she had introed. So this is only applicable to soft news story. Consider a conclusion, how you want to wrap up your story, so that when the reader goes through the piece, he or she is able to understand that, oh, this is the end of the story. It ended very well, very badly, happily ever after, whatever, depending on what you're writing about. So these are just some ideas for your soft news story. Now, very quickly, journalistically, we want to be able to be efficient about how we write. We want to be correct in how we are typing our words, spelling our words. We are not sure, always check If you're not sure, I think library services can help you with punctuation and grammar knowledge. What also helps, I find, as a writer is to read out your story out loud. Then you're able to catch some of the gaps that may be in your report. Using journalistic style. Now, in this particular unit, you have the Monash style guide in your week 2. Please take a look at it if you're unsure on how to spell out certain things, if you're using he, she, a title of a person, a name of an organization, do you upper caps, lower caps, all this, go through the guide, follow that guide as closely as possible. If you can't, we're not asking you to memorize the guide, we're asking you to just use it as you write. Okay, we'll definitely go through this during tutorials. Now, if you're looking at moving to another organization, let's say you end up working in, I don't know, where can you work? You can work in your own organization. You can work the New York Times, for instance, the Guardian, Bangkok Post, you know, some of my favorite papers, as you can see, in the Manila Times. Each organization will have its own style. House style it's called, whether you capitalize a certain letter of, whether you use British spelling, British English spelling, or American English spelling. And then whether you address a person with Mr., Miss, some newspapers drop it at all. Some people, some news organizations include. So everyone's different. For Monash purposes, just go through the Monash style guide and follow that to help you along. So our journalistic house style is, it's very simple. Everything is kept short, which I think short writing is the challenge in writing. To be able to concise your ideas in shorter sentences that deliver the punch, deliver the message, that will be the challenge. So these are some of the rules we hope that we can try and keep to when we are doing our own reports. You know, never using 2 or more words where one will do, find a shorter word, avoid colloquialism, avoid la, a lot, yes, last time. You know, these are the Malaysian ones, okay? Quite specifically. So be grammatically correct. Do not repeatedly repeat the same or similar. So watch what you're writing, because sometimes you're looking to meet the word count, you tend to repeat certain ideas again and again, which happens in all essays. But you have room to play with essays, right? You have room to expand sentences, not in your news reports, as you can see in the word length of your assessments. Never qualify absolute words like unique or dead. Though if a person is dead, the person is dead. You can't say he's not breathing. You know, he's dead. The next sentence, he's not breathing. Third sentence, he doesn't have a heart rate. You know, I mean, it's obvious. It's dead. It's like saying daytime. It's obvious it's daytime, you know, but in that sense, that's it's absolute that it's daytime, but you can describe day with many words. You know, it's a sunny day, it's a rainy day, that sort of thing. But in things like your first point there, it is what it is, okay? Tautologies is to continue to repeat ideas in different forms. So you said the person has short hair and the person had his hair cut short. In the next sentence, the person went to the barber and had a trim. I mean, you're saying the same thing. So be careful of this, which happens. It's quite funny, but it happens. Be careful of words that sound the same and spelled differently. So just effect, affect. Watch out for those sort of things. Be careful of collective nouns. How do you group, you know, a gaggle of geese, a flock of birds, a group of children? Those sort of collective nouns, just be careful how you use them. You're unsure, refer to the dictionary, look online, try and fix it, okay? Word contractions doesn't really happen so much in the course, but if you are in Indonesia, if I noticed in Indonesian, what you call that, in Indonesian news, back when I did read a lot of Indonesian newspapers, they love a lot of acronyms. Avoid acronyms where you can, especially unfamiliar acronyms. So, you know, MCO, Movement Control Order, sure, we all know what it means now in Malaysia. That's an acronym that you can use, but you got to introduce it in full first. So all this we will go through during the tutorials, okay? So that it is it. Just for a reminder, just go through the video, pause at any point, use the slides to guide you so that you can learn the techniques to write your assessments to produce a hard news report and a soft news report.